Welcome to the EduStar Talks podcast, where we invite some amazing educational rock stars who lives to inspire and loves to encourage. Hosted by an educator, facilitator, and the EdTech coach, Sumedha Sodhi. In this show, we will discuss about how educators can amplify student engagement, shake up learning, and can rock the curriculum content with 21st century skills. So if you are looking for ways to rock your class, stay tuned with us and be the never to be forgotten.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Edu Rockstar podcast episode number 9, and today we have a special guest with us, Ms. Lakshmi Annapurna Chintaluri. She is certified in Advanced Educational Leadership from Harvard University, USA. She has 28 years of association in the field of education with experience in India and abroad, with more than 25 years in a leadership role. She has written several articles, presented papers at various international conferences, participated and conducted webinars, and is also a recipient of NET Asia Award for collaboration along with other national and international awards. She is the author of the book Who Are the Path Takers in a School, which focuses on transforming schools to the 21st century levels, released recently by the AICTE Chairman Dr. Anil Sahasrabudhe and NCRT Director Dr. Sridhar Srivastav. We welcome you, ma'am, for the EduStar podcast, and we really look forward for a great interaction on the new education policy for India. I request you, I request you, ma'am, to kindly introduce yourself to our audience today.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for inviting me for this podcast. My professional journey, I would say, has been varied, exposing me to rich experiences and tremendous learning, I would say, both in India and abroad, which has now helped me to reach these levels where I can now lead and guide all the stakeholders in the school system. Over the last 3 years since I relocated back to India, I would say I have become a freelance education consultant by default and have had the opportunity to train almost 3,000 teachers and more than 500 principals and headmasters across the country through various organizations and through schools. So this is, in short, about me. I would say it has given me an opportunity to pen a lot of articles about my experience, and the final thing has come out in the form of a book, which I would call as a professional diary. All my experiences and learnings I have put together in that book, and I've had the good fortune of getting it released by two big stalwarts from the education industry.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
ma'am. It is a pleasure having you on our podcast today. So today we are going to discuss about the National Education Policy, which is the first holistic reform that aims to completely change education of all levels across India. The first of its kind since the Constitution of India was created more than 7 decades ago. The NEP can be seen as a continuing of the ideals and principles which were listed out in our Constitution, and as the NEP itself claims to build an equitable, inclusive, and plural society as envisaged in our Indian Constitution. So today we are going to discuss about national education policy with our guest. So my question to you is, ma'am, that what purpose does the NEP serve?
Okay, basically, any national education policy serves as a policy document setting the vision, mission, and philosophy of the nation's educational standards. It sets the agenda, the tone and tenor, content, and intent of the policy makers to make it very clear for everyone associated with education, be it the K 12 sector or the higher education, as it where it wants to see the status of the country in terms of education vis-a-vis the world. Today, we cannot ignore the world's benchmarks, and all attempts have to be made to see to it that every child in our country who has the ability to become a global citizen reaches the benchmarks set by the world. And that is the purpose of NEP.
That's indeed a great thought, ma'am. Thank you for sharing that. Now, there is no secret that parts of Indian education have been about only cramming facts and figures till now, and many of which will have no use in our adult life. Until now, it's been about memorizing enough to earn high marks in an increasingly competitive space. And this policy, NEP, has set about to change this by promoting a critical thinking approach to learning, making students come to their own conclusion after being given some facts and not just providing facts and expecting them to memorize answer. So what do you think are the key takeaways from the NEP for the K-12 educators?
Surely there are many takeaways for educators. And by educators, I mean all the major stakeholders in a school system, like the managements, leadership, and teachers in particular. If you see the previous education policy, which came about 34 years ago, at that time the focus of the nation was to increase the literacy rate, make primary education mandatory for all, bring as many children into the education fold as possible. We probably achieved that. But what became a casualty in the process of working aggressively to bring many children into the schools is what we call as grade level competency. Grade level competency means that children should have achieved the knowledge and skills as per the level of that particular grade. It means that a class 3 student should be having the knowledge and skills meant for a class 3 year child. Unfortunately, in our country today, a large percentage of even class 5 students do not have grade level competency of even class 3 standards. And as regards literacy and numeracy, specifically as regards literacy and numeracy. Now we have achieved the literacy levels targeted to a large extent, but as I mentioned before, if we do not take care of the grade level competency, it becomes useless. So the present NEP focuses on increasing the quality of education received by the children. And in this direction, where earlier the NCERT and SCERT were involved in education from grade 1 onwards, now the focus has shifted to preschool levels also. That is from nursery onwards. That is from age 3 onwards, there is a plan that has been chalked out. In fact, there is a plan from 3 to 3 years also, which will be implemented by orienting parents. And this is where they have brought in ECCE, that is the Early Childhood Care and Education, with its pedagogical practices. In fact, Bill Gates says the first 5 years of a child's life decide how the next 80 will be. That is how important early years education is to a child, as it helps in building the base or foundation for their entire life's learning process. And I think one of the best decisions of NEP is to introduce the pedagogical practices of ECCE at the foundational stage, as early years today is considered as one of the most important age group which requires proper education. If you see, according to UNESCO, a preschool curriculum is one that delivers educational content through daily activities and furthers a child's physical, cognitive, and social development. And in this direction, the pedagogical practices of ECCE are the best that can be implemented. And NEP has also recognized that it enables the children to attain optimal outcomes in the domains of physical and motor development, cognitive development, social, emotional, ethical development, cultural, artistic development, and the development of communication and early language literacy and numeracy. Across the world, the OECD countries, this is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which ranks countries based on their standards of education, has ranked Finland, Sweden, Norway, UK, Singapore, etc. as the countries having the best education. And all of them use the pedagogical practices of ECCE at the foundational stage in their education system. And I'm happy that our government has also realized this and has decided to implement these the pedagogical practices of ECCE in our early years education. And to take this further, the next focus is on foundational literacy and numeracy. Here again, the policy clearly states that there will be a special attention paid to early language and mathematics from grades 1 to 5. And the policy aims to ensure that every student in grade 5 and beyond must achieve foundational literacy and numeracy by 2025. And this will take care of that grade level competency. But today, as per statistics, over 5 crore students currently in elementary schools have not attained the foundational literacy and numeracy levels as expected. So, attaining this foundational literacy and numeracy for all children has thus become an urgent national mission. In fact, as per Ms. Anita Karwal, the Secretary of School Education, if this is not taken as a priority and the objectives are not attained, then the rest of the policy will become invalid. Another major move, according to the policy, or I would call it as the cornerstone of the entire policy, as this was the reason the entire education policy needed to be revamped and revisited, is to move from rote learning to competency based learning. This is what you mentioned also, that there is a rat race for marks and rote learning has been the key. Now, this has been in focus for the last few years, and today there are many schools which have adopted these measures in their teaching and learning process, as this is the need of the hour today for our children to compete with the best in the world. From my experience of visiting many schools, I would say that there are 75% of the schools which still need to move from this rote learning to competency based learning in our country. And this multidisciplinary approach that has been recommended in the policy also helps students to gain concept understanding and again helping them to move away from rote learning. And another key takeaway, or another thing that educators need to be mindful of, is what has been taken more seriously by the policymakers is regulation in the field of education. Especially in a country like India, this is very essential. It's not only enough to frame the rules, regulations, policies, define quality and professional standards. It is equally necessary to ensure that there is an efficient monitoring system to see to it that all of these are followed as directed. Many countries in the world have these regulations in place, and some of them being very stringent, some giving enough autonomy to the school leadership and teachers to enable them to come up with their own innovative ideas. In some countries, there are regular inspections of all the schools based on the parameters spelled out by the ministry, and schools are given rankings. And this actually gives the parents also an idea as to what kind of school they are admitting their child and what's the quality of education they can expect from the schools. I'm happy to note that now, as per the policy, to ensure that all schools follow certain minimal professional and quality standards, the states and the union territories will set up independent statewide bodies, like called the State School Standards Authority, etc., which will establish a minimum set of standards based on the basic parameters like safety, security, basic infrastructure, number of teachers across subjects, and grades, probity, and sound processes of governance, etc. So I would look at these four major points like the ECCE, the foundational literacy and numeracy, moving to competency based learning, and finally getting ready for regulatory authorities as the major takeaways for every educator from this NEP.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for bringing out such brilliant, insightful thoughts for the educators today. Very possibly, the changes which are laid out in the NEP mirror the educational models of some of the most powerful and developed countries in the world. And now it is going to be applied to our country that has largest population in the world. So what do you think is the professional development road plan to prepare teachers for such inquiry based teaching with 6 C's as their focus along with the implementation of the sustainable development goals?
Now, one thing is very clear that by now every educator has understood that there has to be a change in the way teaching and learning has to be conducted in the 21st century. And the competencies required for the students to survive in the future are different and are more skill related. We have many studies conducted by Stanford University and the World Bank, which has highlighted the lack of critical thinking skills in our students. And there is statistics to show that 65% of the students who are in school today are all going to take up jobs or entrepreneurial ventures in fields that have not even started today. So, education is in a massive change in our country today. So, moving in this direction, the policy clearly outlines that if we now have to move from rote learning to competency based learning, so now what are the competencies? They are what we call as the 21st century skills, the higher order thinking skills, social and emotional skills, values, life skills, and it is clear that these are the skills which will stand in good stead for our children when they face this uncertain future and help them to face the challenges of their tomorrow. And how do we teach these skills? All these skills have to be taught to our students incidentally. That is, there's no direct lesson to teach critical thinking, etc. It has to be taught using the subjects of English, math, science, etc. So today, how many of our teachers are proficient enough to even think critically, creatively, or out of the box? We have to remember that many of our teachers have not been through a schooling system or a learning system which helped them to develop this kind of thinking. And now, to teach our students, they have to be at least a couple of notches above the students in this direction. So, how many of our teachers are capable of this today? How many of them can write lesson plans which can enable the children to acquire all these skills? There are many schools in India where teachers are not familiar with these, and schools also don't insist. There are many pockets in India where teachers have not even heard about Bloom's taxonomy, and here we are trying to train them in experiential learning. This is the present scenario. So here, the policymakers are now working to bring about professional development modules by revising and revisiting the National Curriculum Framework of Teacher Education's new version. By the end of 2021, we should be seeing that. And what is most heartening to see is that now we don't need to wait for 34 years to see changes to these standards and the quality. But every 5 years, this will be done. And the policy also clearly outlines the guidelines that have been defined to improve the teacher education overall, including overhauling the teacher education institutes and even attempting to weed out those not up to the mark, and slowly ensuring that going forward, these programs will be available in regular universities to enable the students to have access to research based programs and exposure and interaction with PhD aspirants. And the policy also outlined the development of a common guiding set of national professional standards for teachers, which will be developed by 2022. Now, as per the policy by the National Council for Teacher Education in consultation with NCERT and coordinated by the SCRT's teachers from across all levels and regions, hopefully, this will ensure that there is a standardization of the expectations from the teachers as to the minimum levels of knowledge, skills, and attitude required to be exhibited by the teachers across the board, which will then help us to reach the goals outlined in the policy. This is very important in today's scenario. For people to understand the level of professional skills required to become a teacher and that not everyone and anyone can become a teacher. And here again, the professional standards will be reviewed once every 10 years from 2030 onwards, taking the empirical analysis and after observing how efficiently the systems are running. Another positive move that I see in the policy for teachers is the autonomy that is given to them in choosing finer aspects of pedagogy so that they may teach in the manner that they find most effective for the students in their classrooms and communities, and as part of the developing the school culture, involving them in the governance, including as members of the school management committee, etc. So, for a teacher who is passionate, there's a lot to look forward to. Teachers who deliver will enjoy a lot of learning and growing opportunities, and attempts are also being made to create a niche for them in the society also today, and again regain the lost respect that is due to them in the society.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. Teacher requires lot of professional development and a
Yes.
road plan
Mm.
to
Yes.
prepare themselves first to
Yes.
implement the new education policy. Indeed, you
Yes.
brought up some of the very
Mm.
good points. And
Yes.
now I would like to ask you that, keeping in mind the overall aim of learning, which you have
Mm.
just discussed with our
Mm.
audience,
Mm.
what changes do you think should be made in the assessments, and
Mm.
how this 360-degree multi-dimensional report
Mm.
card will be prepared for the students? Kindly throw some light on this.
Yes. Now, if the skills that need to be acquired changed, automatically the methods of assessment also needs to change. The blueprints for assessments, everything has to change. So here we are looking at skills like critical thinking, analytical thinking, logical analysis, creative thinking, problem solving, collaboration, citizenship, character building, all of them being the most important skills. Then what we need to understand is that these skills cannot be acquired overnight or in a year. Children have to grow in an environment where opportunities are provided to enable them to develop these skills. And the kind of modules that we have brought out in the form of ECC and all the various pedagogical practices will help develop all these skills. So, how do we assess them? So, what kind of skills do we see, observe when they are in preschool, when they reach the preparatory levels, middle levels, and secondary levels? All the skills that we see are all different. So, hence, the assessment models also need to change accordingly. And this is where the level of learning outcomes that are defined at every one of these stages play a very big role. It's very essential to standardize these learning outcomes. And that is where designing the assessment model by NCERT becomes that much more important. And this standardization will ensure that across the board, everyone is following the same, and the overall education standards in the country improve in a linear manner and reach the benchmarks of the world to enable the students to become global citizens. If you see, India is now participating in PISA, that is a program for international student assessment, with Chandigarh as the representative of Indian education system. And many more states are coming forward to participate in 2024 version of PISA. Now, if we have to stand somewhere at par with the countries participating in this examination, which will tell us where we are with respect to the rest of the countries in the world, here we have to recollect that way back in 2009 also we participated, and we stood 72nd out of 73 countries who participated. So things have to change to meet those standards. So how do we go about it? Once we have brought the preschool age groups from age 3 onwards into the mainstream by adopting ECCE principles in teaching and learning, automatically the way the assessment happens changes. And at the preschool level, it's not examination oriented at all. The entire assessment is going to be like continuous assessment based on observations. As when you want to measure competency based learning, it has to be and will be a continuous assessment based on the learning outcomes that the child needs to achieve. So it becomes necessary for us to have some kind of an evaluation at grades 3, 5, and 8, which has been decided by the policy. That at these levels, which are like at the end of the foundational stage, end of the preparatory stage, and again at the end of the middle years, to ensure that we are on the right track in our endeavor to move ahead in the direction that we chose to take. Now, once the children reach their grade level competency at every stage, chances of dropouts at these stages also can be reduced, although there could be many other reasons for the dropouts also. Now, as regards these examinations, now there is a big discussion about these examinations becoming a burden to the children and the parents. I don't think it needs to be looked at like a board exam and go on to conduct coaching classes, etc., but just allow the child the necessary environment to acquire the grade level competency. These are basically just to ensure that the children have acquired the knowledge, skills, and attitudes according to their age group. If you see in countries like Singapore, etc., they also conduct an examination in grade 3, and based on the results of the examination, children are directed to different schools with different pathways, all of them leading to higher education at the convenience of the students. So, and across the world, a continuous evaluation which involves more of qualitative evaluation, like the CCE that we had earlier, is the major method of assessment that is carried out for children across all age groups. Unfortunately, in our country, this had to be scrapped as it was not used as intended. But if it can be made more robust with parameters and rubrics defined, it should help to sustain itself. Here again, the policy clearly states that the guidelines will be prepared by NCERT in consultation with major stakeholders such as the various boards of assessments, the National Assessment Center for School Education, and teachers, to bring about a transformation in the assessment system. And they've also clearly outlined a timeline also for this, that by 2022-23 academic session, which will include training of teachers also, it will align with the new national curriculum framework, which is expected by the end of the year. So here again, the policy speaks volumes about the intent of the government to bring in the necessary change and the importance of bringing in that multidimensional report card that you mentioned, which actually specifies as to the growth and the development that the child has actually acquired as regards the learning outcomes that have been defined for the child, rather than quantitative marks and marks, which is being now given a lot of importance. So and once that is done, uh, and once this is done with the expertise of the professionals, the coordination of with all the stakeholders, and a conscientiousness to bring in a big change in the assessment system of the country, it will ensure that children are not pressurized, nor do they need to feel the pressure, and parents also do not need to look at exams like something demonizing, which is what is happening now. So I think both children and parents also should relax and take things as they come easily and happily. This is
Yeah.
my take on that.
Mhm. Thank you so much, ma'am. It's really, it's very deep, and I look forward to such a day when all the teachers and
Yes.
all the stakeholders are actually implementing the all the important points which are laid out in this policy.
Mm.
So, as you have mentioned, the importance of experiential learning at all stages and
Yes.
the integration of art, sports,
Yes.
and multidisciplinary curriculum. So,
Mm.
as an educationist, what do you think that how this will improve our Indian education system?
Uh, Basically, if you see, when they designed this NEP, on the face of it, it looks very ambitious. It has all the right words, providing universal access to quality education, etc. I actually look at it like a progressive step. By bringing in forcefully that teaching and learning has to change, that we need to bring in experiential learning, we need to integrate. If you see, countries like Finland have already done away with subjects, and now their education is completely concept oriented, which brings in the multidisciplinary dimension into education. So slowly I can see us also moving into that direction. And why I call this as a progressive step is because it has been very well laid out with consultations and taking feedback from across the spectrum and carefully drafted to cover every aspect of the field of education. I must say, I have been one of the privileged persons to have received the first draft way back in 2015 of this national education policy. And it also clearly reflects that we now want to move towards the needs, requirements, and aspirations of the students to become global citizens, and that it should be met. And it is also very clear that there has been a lot of research done about the educational systems across the world, especially from the developed world and the world leaders in the field of education. It reflects the thinking that we now want to think global and act local to rise up to the global standards, and at the same time taking in the rich cultural heritage of our country as a springboard to achieve quality and innovation in education. This is my view on this NEP.
Oh, wow, that's very nice, ma'am. Thank you for bringing out such important words of wisdom for us. We are really blessed to have you discussing about such important features of NEP. But as an educator, I always think about that in the absence of the required infrastructure in schools, especially for technology integration, do you think NEP implementation is possible, and are we all prepared for this kind of implementation which is being talked about in the new education policy?
Yes, that's a wonderful question, and that is one thing that is on the top of every educator's mind today. And there is no doubt that technology is going to play a very big role, very important role in the education sector in the future. I would say it has reached a tipping point, because till today education technology was at the doorstep of education, trying to enter into the education in a big way. And COVID has brought a situation where now we have realized that we cannot do without technology. So there's a lot of focus on increasing the connectivity. Now, the countrywide the government has prioritized increasing the connectivity across the country, and it has been taken up on a war footing by the government. But the previous academic session, what we saw a major digital divide. And so there are many avenues that were created, like Doordarshan and other media using WhatsApp and many other things, whichever media we could use, and wherever possible it could be used. And this was being exposed threadbare by the COVID situation. So this is now very much in focus. And when we talk about technology, we have to talk about two things. One is connectivity, and the next is usage in terms of resources being available. So while the government is focusing on increasing the connectivity, there's a lot of focus on technological interventions to serve as aids to teachers, which will be both piloted and then implemented. And public and school libraries will be expanded to build a culture of reading and communication. Digital libraries also will be encouraged to set up in all public and school libraries. These are all the plans that have been laid out, keeping the technology and the lack of it also in mind. And the idea behind developing all these software and resources is that once the connectivity is established, we are ready to use it in full flow. That is why there's a lot of prioritizing in catering to multiple needs of children, like even adjusting fonts in the books or creating audio books, the retina eye span attention test, the digital braille, musical apps, software, teaching, learning, e-content. All of these, they continue to be developed by states in all regional languages also, as well as by the NCERT, the CIET, CBSE, NIOS, and other bodies and institutions, and they will all be uploaded onto the Diksha platform. And there's increasing access for disadvantaged and Divyang friendly educational software also. So while the connectivity is getting built on one side, resources are also getting developed on the other side, so that once the connectivity is ready, there is enough access for resources for teachers and all educators at hand. And the National Education Technology Forum that has been set up to build intellectual and institutional capacities in educational technology, it envisions strategic thrust areas in this domain to articulate new directions for research and innovation and organize multiple regional and national conferences, workshops. So, as a two pronged attack, things are getting developed, I would say, to ensure that once the connectivity is established, we are ready with all the necessary software and resources to aid our teachers and all the educators.
That's very enlightening indeed, ma'am. And we are waiting for that day when technology integration is being implemented successfully in all the classroom to instill 21st century skill in our
Yes.
students.
Yeah.
Overall, NEP appears to be quite overwhelming. As an educator, I can say that I have read the document. So, what
Mm.
strategies can you suggest for educators where they can take the first steps for implementing the NEP in their pedagogy and their instructional design?
Yeah. Here, different people can take up different strategies. But for you to be able to take the a correct strategy, there are a few things that that one requires. It is very clear that it's imperative for every educator to be aware of, understand, and work towards transforming their schools as per the guidelines spelled out in the NEP. And the onus is always on the leadership of the school, as majority of the school's managements do not have much expertise about the field of education. That is why I always say that those institutions which exhibit the will of the management and skill of the leadership, where both these exists, are the ones which actually move forward and are progressive. Here they need to exhibit a leadership style, leadership which where they are able to envision the steps needed to move ahead, that is, have the vision, energize their team by bringing about the understanding of the necessary steps to be taken in their institutions based on their present levels. What is it that is needed? Infrastructural changes, training, mentoring, monitoring, measuring, identify and take up the necessary steps. Show a lot of courage in taking decisions because there could be some hard ones to take. And finally, show adaptability to move to the 21st century levels as envisaged by the NEP. Here, I think the expectations from the leadership would be to exhibit these four attributes: have a good vision, go with understanding, be courageous, and open to adaptability to take their schools forward as per the guidelines given in the NEP. This would be my take on it.
Indeed, ma'am. The role of the leaders is very much important in the implementation of NEP, and as you have brought out in such a beautiful way, I am also teaching in a very good school in Delhi, and I see my leaders working day in and day out for the successful implementation of NEP. Indeed, you made some very valid points. Thank you for that. I would like to request you to share one last message with our audience today and let them know how they can connect with you on social media and other places so that if they have any more queries about NEP, they can contact you.
Sure. I mean, my message to the major stakeholders of the school would be for managements. In fact, I have given this in my book also. That is why I've called my book as Who Are the Path Breakers in the School, because I consider that the management, the leadership, and the teachers are the main path breakers in the school. And for management, I would generally categorize them as trailblazers because they have actually come out to set up an institution. And to be a trailblazer, you need to look at education as a service industry. If you look at it as a service, business will come. But unfortunately, the converse is not true. For the leadership, I would say that they are the catalysts, as they should know what kind of leadership would help them at which time and be an enabler in the institution. Here, Swami Vivekananda said, believe in yourself and the world will be at your feet. If you win, you can lead. If you fail, you can guide. In fact, this quote has been an inspiration to me all my life. And for teachers, I always believed that they are the change makers of the society today. And to be a change maker, you need to work with a lot of passion, and success will be at your feet. This is my message to the major stakeholders in a school. You can always contact me by mail, or by my mobile, or by my LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn account, and I have a WhatsApp account. I have a Facebook account. Through any one of these, either social media or by my mail, you can contact me. My website is also getting ready. Probably in a week or so, it will get ready. And my mail is clannapurna@gmail.com, and my mobile is 99081 and you can search for me on LinkedIn with CL Annapurna, same with Facebook, and my website is also www.clannapurna.com. So this is how you can get in touch with me. I would be very happy to answer to any queries that you can have. I'm sure even I will learn something through this. Thank you so much.
Tha- Thank you so much for sharing such valuable information with us and making us assure that you are available for us to help us and handhold us for implementation of NEP. Thank you for setting aside your valuable time to be our guest on our podcast today. You are an edu rock star, definitely, and I really appreciate your all the endeavors and efforts that you are making to make the education system a different thing in India. I invited you to this podcast because you are doing such amazing things in the field of education, and I had the privilege of meeting you once in our school when we had a workshop for teachers for global citizenship education, and I really admire all your sincere efforts. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining in with the guest for the podcast today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
You have just listened to the Edu Rockstar Talks podcast with your host Sumedha Sodhi. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. Head over to subscribe, rate, and leave a review for us. It is very much appreciated. Do not forget to join us next week for another exciting episode. Thank you for listening to us, and be the never to be forgotten.